I'm 81 years old, and I've been thinking lately about all the children I raised who weren't mine. Not in some dramatic way. I didn't run an orphanage or foster dozens of kids. I just spent 50 years making sure everyone else's children were fed, cleaned, educated, and cared for, while my own dreams sat in a drawer I never opened. I was a daycare provider, then a nanny, then a preschool teacher, then back to being a nanny again when I needed the money. I loved those children, I really did. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that loving them wasn't supposed to mean erasing myself. I'm sitting here now in a small apartment that smells like old carpet and the lavender spray I used to cover it up, and I'm trying to figure out when exactly I decided that my life didn't matter as much as everyone else's. I don't think I ever actually decided it. It just happened one day at a time until 50 years were gone. When I was 23, I wanted to be a painter. Not a famous one. I didn't need galleries or reviews. I just wanted to paint. I wanted to spend my days with color and canvas and the quiet feeling of making something that didn't exist before. I was good at it too. My art teacher in high school told me I had a real eye for light. I remembered that for years. It made me feel like maybe I had something worth pursuing. I'd spend hours in my bedroom painting landscapes I'd seen on drives through the countryside with my parents. Barns at sunset, fields after rain, the way morning fog sat in the valleys. My mother used to say it was a nice hobby, but she'd say it the way people do when they mean it's not serious, not something you build a life on. But I wanted to try anyway. I applied to a small art school in Seattle. I got in. I had a scholarship that would have covered most of it. I was supposed to start that fall, but I met Richard in June, and by August, I was in love. By October, we were engaged. He was older than me by 6 years. He had a steady job as an electrician. He was responsible and kind, and my parents liked him, which mattered to me more than it should have. When I told him about art school, he got quiet. Then he said, "Is that really what you want to do with your life?" I didn't know how to answer that because, yes, it was what I wanted, but the way he said it made it sound childish. He said we needed to think about our future, about building something stable. He said art was fine for some people, but most artists didn't make any money, and did I really want to struggle like that? I told him maybe I could do both, go to school and still plan a wedding, still build a life with him. He said that wasn't realistic. He said I had to choose, so I chose him. I got married at 24, and I told myself it was the right choice. I told myself love was more important than some dream I'd had as a girl, and maybe it would have been if the love had lasted. We needed money right away. Richard's salary was enough for basics, but we wanted to save for a house. We wanted to start a family. So I took a job at a daycare center. It was temporary, I thought, just until we got on our feet. I told myself I'd paint on weekends, but weekends were for laundry and shopping and cleaning the apartment and visiting his mother, who lived 40 minutes away and expected us every Sunday without fail. She'd make pot roast and sit across from me at the table, asking when we were going to give her grandchildren. Every single week, the same question. I'd take out my paint sometimes on Saturday mornings. I'd set everything up on the kitchen table, lay out the brushes, squeeze colors onto the palette, and then Richard would wake up and need breakfast, or he'd have a project he needed help with, or I'd look at the blank canvas and feel too tired to start. After a while, I stopped taking them out. The baby we were planning never came. We tried for 6 years. I went to doctors. I took medications that made me feel sick and emotional. I tracked everything on calendars, took my temperature every morning, timed everything precisely. Nothing worked. Richard didn't handle it well. He never said it was my fault, but he didn't have to. I could feel it in the way he'd leave the room when pregnancy announcements came on TV, the way he'd go quiet at family gatherings when his sister brought her kids. We stopped talking about it eventually, just stopped bringing it up at all. I think that's when I really leaned into the daycare work. If I couldn't have my own children, at least I could pour everything into other people's, and I was good at it. The parents loved me. The kids loved me. I knew all their names, their favorite snacks, which ones needed extra hugs and which ones needed space. There was a little girl named Maya who used to cry every morning when her mother dropped her off. She'd cling to her mother's leg and sob like her heart was breaking. Her mother would leave anyway, rushing out the door to get to work, and I'd scoop Maya up and hold her until she calmed down. After a few weeks, Maya started reaching for me instead of her mother, started smiling when she saw me in the mornings. Her mother said I was a miracle worker, but some mornings I'd watch Maya's mother leave and feel this deep ache, because Maya loved me, but only because her mother couldn't be there. I was the substitute, the second choice. I worked there for 12 years. Richard left when I was 39. It wasn't dramatic. No affair, no big fight. He just came home one evening and said he couldn't do it anymore. Said we'd become strangers. Said he needed to figure out who he was outside of a marriage that wasn't working. He packed a bag that night. He was gone by the weekend. I didn't fight him. I think I was relieved. We'd been living like roommates for years, polite and distant. We'd stopped touching, stopped laughing, stopped being anything to each other except people who shared a lease. The apartment felt bigger after he left, emptier, but also calmer. I thought maybe this would be my chance to finally figure out what I wanted, to maybe pick up those paintbrushes again. But the divorce was expensive. Legal fees, splitting assets, moving costs. I needed more money, so I started doing private nanny work. Live-in positions mostly, because they paid better and I didn't have anywhere else I needed to be. My first family was in Portland. The Richardsons, they had 3 children. James was 4, Sophie was 2, and Emma was born a month after I started. Mrs. Richardson was a corporate lawyer. Mr. Richardson worked in finance. They both traveled constantly. I moved into their house and essentially became the parent. I woke the children up every morning, made breakfast, got James to preschool, played with Sophie and Emma all day, made dinner, did baths, read bedtime stories, cleaned up the kitchen while they slept. Mrs. Richardson would come home some nights at 9 or 10. She'd peek into their rooms, see them sleeping, and then pour herself a glass of wine and ask me how their day was. She was exhausted. I could see it. She'd kick off her heels and rub her feet, and I could tell she wished she'd been there for dinner, for baths, for stories. But she also loved her work. She was proud of what she did, and someone had to pay for the house and the food and the school and everything else. So I was there instead. I taught James to read. I was the one who saw Sophie take her first steps. I was the one Emma said Mama to before she learned my actual name. Mrs. Richardson cried when that happened. She was standing in the kitchen when Emma toddled over to me and said it clear as day, "Mama." I corrected her immediately, told her I wasn't Mama, told her to say my name instead. But Mrs. Richardson left the room, and I heard her crying in the bathroom. I felt terrible, but I didn't know what else to do. I was just there. I was just doing my job. I stayed with that family for 14 years. I watched James grow from a little boy into a teenager who barely spoke to anyone. I watched Sophie become obsessed with horses, and then ballet, and then boys. I watched Emma start kindergarten and then middle school. When James left for college, Mrs. Richardson threw him a going-away party. Relatives came, friends, his teachers. Everyone gave speeches about how proud they were, how much he'd accomplished, what a good person he'd become. Mrs. Richardson thanked me briefly, said I'd been a wonderful help over the years. That was it, a wonderful help. I'd raised that boy. I'd been there for every skinned knee, every bad dream, every hard day at school, but I was the help. James hugged me goodbye that day. It was quick and awkward. He said, "Thanks for everything." And then he was gone. I never heard from him again. After James left, the family didn't need me as much. The girls were older, more independent. Mrs. Richardson had cut back her hours at work. They let me go gently, gave me a severance package and a nice reference letter. I was 53 and looking for work again. I found another family, then another. Shorter stays this time, 5 years with one, 3 with another. The children got younger as I got older, which was hard. My back started hurting. My knees ached when I knelt down to play blocks or help with shoes. I was 59 when I took my last nanny job. The Martins. They were younger than me by 15 years. They had twin boys, 3 years old. Nice kids. Loud and energetic and exhausting. Mr. Martin worked in tech. Mrs. Martin was a doctor. They were building careers, building wealth, building the kind of life I'd never had. And I was in their guest room, raising their children while they did it. They were kind to me. They paid me well. They gave me my own bathroom and let me have weekends off. But I was lonely in a way I'd never been before. I'd come home to that little room at the end of the day, and I'd sit on the bed and wonder what I was doing. I'd spent my entire adult life in other people's homes, raising other people's children, living on the margins of other people's lives. I had no home of my own, no children of my own, no life of my own. I started having this recurring dream where I was in a house full of children, dozens of them, all different ages, and they were all calling for me at once. Can you help me? I'm hungry. I need you. Where are you? And I'd run from room to room trying to reach them all, but there were too many. I couldn't get to them fast enough. I'd wake up with my heart racing, tangled in the sheets, feeling like I'd failed somehow. I worked until I was 68. My back finally gave out. I couldn't lift the twins anymore. Couldn't bend down and stand up 50 times a day without pain shooting through my spine. Mrs. Martin found me crying in the laundry room one afternoon, not because of anything specific, just because I was 68 years old folding someone else's children's clothes and I couldn't do it anymore. She was kind about it, helped me find a retirement plan, wrote me a glowing reference I'd never use. I moved into this apartment with my savings and Social Security. It's small, 1 bedroom, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in, but it's mine. I thought maybe finally I'd have time for myself. I thought maybe I could paint again. I went to an art supply store and spent more money than I should have. New brushes, canvases, paints. I set up a little easel in the corner of my living room by the window where the light was best. I sat down in front of that blank canvas and I realized I didn't know what to paint anymore. It had been so long, 45 years since I'd seriously tried. I didn't know what I wanted to say, didn't know what I saw when I looked at the world anymore. I tried a few times. I'd sit there with a brush in my hand and nothing would come. It felt like standing in front of a door I'd locked decades ago and realizing I'd lost the key and the door had rusted shut anyway. I thought about all those children I'd raised over the years, dozens of them, maybe more. I wondered if any of them ever thought about me. A few years ago, I looked up James Richardson on social media, the little boy I'd raised in Portland who is now a grown man. He's married, has 2 kids of his own, works for some tech company. His page was full of photos, birthday parties, family vacations, Christmas mornings. There were pictures of his mother and father everywhere, anniversary posts thanking them for everything they'd done for him. I scrolled through 3 years of posts and never saw my name mentioned once. Not once. I don't blame him. Why would he post about the nanny he had 20 years ago? But it hurt in a way I didn't expect. I'd given 14 years of my life to that family. I'd sacrificed my own chance at having children to raise theirs. And to them, I was just someone who'd been there for a while. I thought about reaching out, just sending a message saying hello, asking how he was doing, but what would I even say? Hi, I'm the woman who raised you while your parents worked. Do you remember me? I didn't send anything. Last year my sister died, heart attack. She was 79. She was the only family I had left. We weren't particularly close. She lived in Arizona and we only talked a few times a year. but she was my sister, my last connection to the life I had before everything else. At her funeral, I saw people I hadn't seen in decades, cousins, old neighbors, friends from when we were young. One woman I barely remembered came up to me. She asked if I ever had children of my own. I said no. She got this pitying look on her face and said, "Oh, that's too bad. You would have been such a good mother." I smiled, thanked her, excused myself to the bathroom where I cried for 20 minutes. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to tell her I had been a mother. I'd been a mother to dozens of children. I'd just never gotten to keep any of them, and I'd given up everything else to do it. I never traveled. I never went to Europe like I dreamed about in my 20s. Never saw Paris or Florence or any of the places I'd wanted to paint. I never took the pottery class I saw advertised at the community center. Never learned to play the piano even though I always loved music. Never joined a book club or made real friends outside of work. I never dated after Richard. A few men asked over the years, but I was always too tired or too busy or too afraid it wouldn't work out anyway. I just worked and worked and worked. And now I'm 81 and I'm alone. I don't have children who call me on Sundays. I don't have grandchildren who visit. I don't have a partner to sit with in the evenings. I have this small apartment, 3 friends from church, and a lot of time to think about everything I didn't do. I'm not saying my life was wasted. That's not what I mean. The work I did mattered. Those children needed someone, and I was there for them. I gave them stability and love and care when their parents couldn't. That's worth something. I know it is. But I needed someone too. I needed me. And I abandoned myself for so long that by the time I finally looked up, I didn't recognize who I was anymore. I'd become this person whose entire identity was built around serving others, around being needed. But being needed isn't the same as being valued, and it's definitely not the same as being loved. If you're young and you're listening to this, I want to tell you something. It's not selfish to want things for yourself. It's not selfish to protect your time or your energy or your dreams. You can care about other people and still care about yourself. You're allowed to do both. I wish someone had told me that. I wish I'd believed that my life was just as important as the lives I was helping to build. Because here's the truth, nobody tells you. No one is going to protect your dreams for you. No one is going to show up at your door in 30 years and say, "Hey, I noticed you gave up everything you wanted. Here's all that time back." It doesn't work that way. You lose it, and it's gone. I lost it. I'm not going to get it back. I'm too old now to become the painter I wanted to be. My hands shake. My eyes aren't what they were. The vision I had is gone. I'm too old to travel the way I imagined I might. My body can't handle long flights or walking all day through museums. I'm too old to build the kind of life I see other people my age enjoying, the ones who made different choices, who didn't wait, who didn't put themselves last for 50 years. I see them at church sometimes, women my age with their children and grandchildren, making plans for holidays, going on trips together, talking about visits and phone calls and all the ways they stay connected. And I sit there with my church bulletin in my lap, and I smile and nod, and inside I feel this enormous emptiness. I made choices, I know that. Nobody forced me to do what I did, but I made those choices thinking I had more time, thinking eventually there'd be space for me. There wasn't. There isn't. I don't want pity. That's not why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you because I don't want you to be 81 years old and realize you spent your whole life raising everyone else and forgot to raise yourself. I'm telling you because I thought I had more time, and then suddenly I didn't. I'm telling you because I thought being needed was the same as being loved, and it's not. Being needed is exhausting. Being needed is lonely. Being loved is something else entirely. And I'm not sure I ever really had it. I still think about painting sometimes. I'll see a sunset through my window, or the way light hits the building across the street in the late afternoon, and I'll think, I would have painted that, but I didn't, and now I can't, and I have to live with that. I have to live with the knowledge that I had something once, a dream, a possibility, a version of myself that wanted things, and I let it die. Not all at once, just slowly, one compromise at a time until there was nothing left. I don't know if this story means anything to you. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're young and you think you have all the time in the world, and maybe you do, but maybe you don't. Maybe you're like I was, saying someday and later, and when things settle down. Things don't settle down. They just keep moving, and you either move with them toward what you want, or you let them carry you somewhere else entirely. I let them carry me. I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I still wake up every morning and make my coffee and sit by the window. But the life I wanted is gone, and I'm the one who let it go. If you take anything from this, let it be that. Don't let go. Don't wait. Don't assume you'll get another chance. You might not. I didn't.